Wow. Well, yes, I think we have enough chairs. I think we added one. We've got a fantastic panel. So I'd like to ask my panelists to please join me. We have the mayor of Trikala, Dimitris Papastergiou, please. And everyone just come on up. Peter, come on up, please. Peter Smith from Southampton University. Dimitris Lagoudas, thank you. Dimitris from Texas A&M. Katerina Parmateri. I'll do formal introductions in a minute. And please, Jonas, thank you so much for joining us, and Christian. So have a seat and we'll get started. And it looks like they're going to give us our full time, so this is great. We've got a great team here. So first of all, I just want to welcome everyone. Again, I'm Chad Evans, U.S. Council on Competitiveness. Like everyone else, I want to thank our hosts in Greece. I want to thank this incredible panel that is dominated by incredible leaders from Greece, and we're going to have a great conversation. And our conversation builds on what we just heard in the last panel about trust. We're going to focus on taking that even further. How do you translate trust into deep, enduring partnerships to drive, yes, innovation, but ultimately long-term inclusive prosperity and productivity for our respective regions, our countries, and yes, lifting all boats, the world. Partnership, what does that even mean? That it's a coming together around joint goals, and we're all contributing something. And ultimately, that's about sharing. And so I'm really happy here to share in this conversation with this group. And I'm going to do some formal introductions, and then we're just going to jump into a conversation. And in no particular order, but I'm going to introduce the mayor first. Mayor Dimitris Papastergiou, the mayor of Trikala. Incredible story here. Greece's first truly smart digital city. We're going to learn a little bit more about that. And in fact, the mayor has gone even beyond that. He's become a real champion across the country and even across Europe in how do you develop and build smart digital environments, communities, and cities. We also have Jonas Smirlis. Jonas is the chairman of Enterprise Greece. That's the official trade and investment promotion agency of the Greek state under the auspices of the Ministry of Finance. So thank you, Jonas, for being with us. Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you. Christian Hadjiminas. Christian is the president of EFA Group and the president of the Hellenic Entrepreneurs Association. We have Katerina Parmateri. Katerina is the founder of Unifund Greece. That's a venture capital fund that is really looking to leverage and optimize the potential around Greece's, yes, academic and university community, but the broader R&D and technology ecosystem here. We have Dimitris Lagoudas, a good friend of mine. I've had the pleasure of spending a lot of time with Dimitris over the past decade, maybe even more, at Texas A&M, and we'll talk a little bit more about that partnership. But Dimitris is the Associate Vice President for Engineering Research at Texas A&M. He's also the Deputy Director of Texas A&M's Engineering and Experiment Station. And full disclosure, I'm a proud member of the advisory board of TEAS, and we're going to learn more about that organization. But he's also the Senior Associate Dean for Engineering Research and an aerospace engineer. And last but not least, we have Peter Smith. Dr. Peter Smith is the Associate Vice President for International at the University of Southampton in the United Kingdom. He runs a path-breaking lab on the development of quantum optics, integrated optics, optical fabrication. Like Katerina, he's a founder of startup companies. We'll talk a little bit more with the two of them about their experiences as not only funders but founders. He's also a serial patenter with, I think, over 50 patents to his name to date. So welcome. Again, this conversation is really about exploring how do we accelerate innovation through partnerships. And there'll be two meta questions for the group. Really, how are all of you thinking about advancing partnerships in your own reality? And what do you see as sort of the key building blocks to those partnerships? But Mayor, if I could actually just start with you first. I mentioned Trikala, first digital smart city in Greece. That must not have been easy to do. It's not easy to do anywhere. So what have been the success factors as you see them in this transformation for yourself, for the city, and perhaps with a particular focus on the role of partnerships in making Trikala the shining example it is today?
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation, and let me speak about my small, humble city of Trikala, a small city in the center of Greece. It is not something very difficult, but we have to start saying that we have to share the same vision as the local authorities and also the community. But this has to be done after a lot of discussion. I see that nowadays there's a huge gap between local authorities, governments, and the community, because we start thinking of something. We start running, trying to catch deadlines, to catch deliverables, but sometimes we must press a pause and look back if community is with us, if it is running in the same rhythm. And sometimes this gap is filled with a lot of extreme voices. It is very easy nowadays to believe in anything. Our minds cannot believe what we lived all the previous years. So a lot of discussion, a lot of exchange of opinions about the real problems. Especially technology is, let's say, a weird situation because in our local authorities we saw a lot of, let's say, solutions, but we ran all this route in the wrong way. We had the solutions and then the apps, and then we were trying to find the problems. No, we have to make it in the opposite way, to recognize the real problems of our local communities and use technology to solve them. So the point and the key is to be as close as we can to local communities and listen to their fears and their real needs. And if we build this trust, then everything is much easier.
Well, can we go a little bit further? What were some of the, and I'd actually like to extend this to the rest of the panel, if you'd like to weigh in. You talk about building trust in the communities, some of the fears you have to overcome. What have been some of those concerns? And you know, Dimitris, you might want to weigh in. You're in College Station as a really interesting university town, but you're building fast there too. You're creating a smart community. I'm sure College Station has its own concerns, and others may want to jump in. I'd love to hear it, but Mayor, we'll go back to you, and then if others want to jump in here, please. Just what were some of those fears or concerns that the community raised around the transformation of the city?
I can tell you a very good, small but very good example. In our city, we have a street market, but at the same place there were the urban transport companies, the buses. It is not a viable situation being all together there. We said that we have to change the places, but we have also to persuade the farmers that they will stay there, not to abstract them outside the city. Also, the buses were afraid not to be in a place that could not commute, could not take the passengers. We start discussing a lot, but we said that trust us, we need you, both of you. We will be here the next day. And now, after 50 years of fights, local fights and disputes, we managed to bring them together at the same table. And now we see, after making all these urban revitalization projects, that everything works perfect. So they have to trust us. And they have to feel that also the next local authorities will follow the same policies.
Right. So there's like this a sense of continuity, a continuation of trust, and that partnership that develops over time. Dimitris, any reflections on the experience you're living in the middle of Texas?
I agree actually with the mayor. Local trust also means local presence. And we have experienced this. Texas A&M University is in the center of Texas, but we do a lot of business, meaning that we have students who come to Texas A&M, but also we establish centers in remote areas of Texas. You have to be there, to be present, to understand the local problems. And what works, for example, in the south of Texas, digital health has become an issue and we're addressing it. When you go north, Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington, you have a major metroplex, and their issues are different. So we're discussing with them urban mobility. So you have to have local presence to understand the local community and build the trust that the mayor mentioned.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this? Please, Katerina, please.
Can you hear me? Yes, thank you. An honor to be with you, but I would like to refer specifically to trust because myself, apart from partner in Unifund, I'm also a university professor. And it was very difficult for the community to trust a university professor trying to develop a new fund. There are two important comments there. One is what the mayor just said. You need to insist, and it takes a lot of time for people to realize and start seeing results and trusting you. And it has to be really honest. comment on that. In Europe, we have, in Greece, but also in Europe, we have been collaborating, research institutes with the industry for years, for decades, supported by European grants. But this collaboration has been, in many cases, kind of superficial, not real, and it has not delivered actual results to the market. And we all know that it's an issue. What the mayor of Trikala has managed to do, and this is an exceptional case, has managed to exploit all these projects and collaboration to make it real in the city, and I think this is what returns back. And it was also the motivation behind our team at Unifund to really help take the innovations out to the market, out of all this work that is happening in Europe. And in order to gain trust ourselves, me personally, I had to put my personal money in the fund. The team did the same. We got the trust of important institutional investors and, of course, EIF and the Greek government to do so. But I think the most important element was that we were not expecting to find the cases out there. We were prepared to work to develop the success cases. And it's a lot of work, and we still have way to go. But 4 years later, we can see the results of this effort. And once you deliver results, I think more and more people trust you. And I think it's clear to all of us, trust is the currency for innovation and for competitive advantage and economic
Well, that's
growth.
what we heard earlier today and even yesterday. It's sort of you have to have some quick wins. You have to be present. You have to build trust, continuity over time. Peter, I think you wanted to jump in here too, or?
Yeah, I was going to kind of come in slightly on the subject of how do you create that trust within the community. In our case, of the university, and if you want to get spin-outs happening, you've got to get people feeling that they're really engaged, and you've got to. There's got to be real. There's got to be a balance, because I think one of the things that we've been on a journey through at Southampton is there can be a sort of dead hand of the university, which actually inhibits innovation. Everyone gets too concerned. And I think the most enlightened universities take a very light touch, and they build that sense, and they have to read. And there's a very key thing for university leadership is to trust that if they create an ecosystem around the university of wealthy, successful entrepreneurs, that they will give back. And that's quite a difficult trust for institutions to take, because the tendency is to want to hold on to that stuff, and actually they've got to let it get out there.
I think one of the common things I'm also hearing is you all are in some way touching upon your diplomats in some way in your communities. You're building these relationships, and Jonas, I'm wondering if I could maybe bring you into this conversation. You know, first of all, I'd love to hear your thoughts around the fundamentals of what make partnerships work, but I'd also like to maybe have you go deeper. One of the projects that my organization has been working on for the past 3 years, a National Commission on Innovation, has really been, one of the focal areas has been a doubling down in the United States around technology statecraft, innovation diplomacy, and I know you, under the auspices of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, have also been very aggressive around a renewed economic diplomacy in Greece. If you could maybe elevate us from the city to the nation, talk a little bit about the efforts around economic diplomacy, and really how do you see that strengthening innovation capacity, competitiveness?
At first, I should say a little bit about the aspect of trust, the other aspect of trust, which has nothing to do with the local community, but has to do with the global community, and has to do with the state in total. So in Greece, for years, because of the huge debt crisis that we faced, we had the problem of trust of the country. So even that the mayor was doing a great job, when he was traveling around and saying how great is Trikala, only if you have been there, a foreigner could understand what he meant. So for us, it was a big bet how we will build the trust of the country. And I think that this is something that helps in total all the levels of competitiveness, all the levels of development, all the levels of how you will rebrand the country, and with this you rebrand any sector, also the innovation sector. And I think that the secret of Kyriakos Mitsotakis, the Prime Minister, was that even that we faced even more crisis after the debt crisis the last 3 years, he had a motto, and he has a motto, that we take all the difficulties as challenges and as great opportunities to create something new. So we worked a lot on how we rebrand Greece, and you know, if you don't go really inside, you understand that it's a good campaign. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the order transformation of the Greek state. It has to do with the digital transformation of the country. It has to do with being pro-investment, but not on the announcements, but at the recovery fund and how you use it, at the investment law, at the strategic investment law, on how you attract investments and how you bring big companies in Greece, big innovation and technology companies like Google, like Microsoft, like huge investors that help in order to build this trust with the whole community. And I think that after 3 years, if we can say that we succeed on something, is that now anymore, not only the mayor, but all of us, we can travel around and say that we are coming from Greece, and we don't face the same faces. You face something different. You see people that say, oh yeah, you are the guys that you defended pandemic in a good way, and maybe better than the Germans, which is a big success to hear it. Or even now that, again, you don't have a problem of energy. Of course, the prices are really high, but you don't have to cut the power in order to survive. And you already put in front proposals that are being followed by the European Union. This is what we want to succeed, and how I think we build trust, and we worked a lot with economic diplomacy on that. And why? Because what is economic diplomacy and what is extroversion that we are responsible with my Deputy Minister, Kostas Fragogiannis, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? It is how you will take all these achievements of the whole system and you will promote them. This is the campaign at last, but it's coming at last. After you make something, you go to a campaign and you say what you can face now in Greece. And that's why I think that it was really crucial to take all the parts of extroversion and all the coordination of extroversion in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and this is the added value that we give to the whole system and to the country.
Can I ask you to go further? So you've outlined some incredible transformation and success over a relatively short period of time, and we've heard a lot over the past few days about some of those other metrics of how Greece has really responded incredibly in just the past 3 to 4 years. What are your aspirations? You know, how would you look to transform that economic diplomacy even more? You know, what's the next goal? Like, where do you see taking this renewed look on extroversion and engagement?
At first, what we wanted to do in this term, and I think that we are going pretty good, was to create a system of economic diplomacy, because we had the antennas, which is the embassies around the world, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but we brought in Enterprise Greece, which is a flexible tool that gave us the opportunity to work really better. So now, what is the tool that we want even the municipalities and even all the local authorities to participate, is the National Strategy of Extroversion. So this year we ran a strategy that has 670 events and promote events on any different categories in 47 countries, which are not owned by us. They are owned by all the public or private entities that they want to participate. So we coordinate a national program of promoting exports, of attracting investments, of rebranding Greece. And everybody, the mayor of Trikala, the president of the entrepreneurs of Greece, Mr. Hadjiminas, can go and adapt any event that they want, co-organize it, and by this we gain a lot of sources because we are really well organized. And what is our goal for the next year? It is to have our local, in every region, meaning local, offices of extroversion, which will connect all the local authorities with the center, and by the center to all the world through our embassies and our commercial and economic offices. So we create a system outside. Now we want the system to go deep inside. And what is the target? there are two targets. One is to bring in the right investments to the right regions of Greece, and also to give the opportunity to more Greek entrepreneurs to make better and safer exports.
Katerina, I wonder if I could bring you in, because what we've just heard are tools. My organization in 2013 in the United States undertook a study. We looked at 190 successful public-private partnerships around the world. And from that study, we distilled almost platonic ideals of what makes a good public-private partnership. One of the things that we learned along this idea of tools is that for entrepreneurs who face a whole range of valleys of death as they look to emerge, engage, develop, and deploy to the marketplace, were things like commercialization grants, but a whole range of other tools to help them succeed and to innovate. But that took partnership. I'm wondering, could I get your perspective from Unifund, but also from the Academy? How are you seeing, what do you think about tools like that? What's working from your perspective? And then we'll open it up, and I'd love to hear from others on this as well.
Thanks for the question. I think it's so crucial to have support mechanisms in that path. I think 20 years back, people were trying on their own, and then we realized that if we offer an ecosystem with partnerships, collaborations, and tools to support entrepreneurship and innovation, we can really increase the results and the impact of what is happening. In Greece, I think there is a great momentum currently because this ecosystem is maturing, is increasing. A lot of structures are built around universities, research centers, the funds themselves, but also incubators, etc. And I think we are in the second era of that because there was some kind of activity in the beginning of the crisis. The crisis, I think, made all of us realize how important this is. So it helped in that direction, and then the creation of the new funds. And now we already have a first basis of collaborations, of trust to build on, and now we have the second era. I think this year is a milestone year in Greece because we had our first unicorns, and we all know that this event notifies for an ecosystem the success and many more to come. And indeed, if we think that for the last 4 years with the EcoFund activity, Unifund is also part of that, we had something like 100 startups that were funded. The result of this activity will be seen, I think, in the next years. This year, what is happening, and I think is really very important to mention, is that there's the mindset in the universities, in the research centers has changed. Structures of collaboration for technology transfer and entrepreneurship as built as we speak now. And that's why I said this is a new era. The result of this is going to be seen further down the road. But I think we are really in a new decade for Greece. A lot of optimism, at least in our space, in the air.
Christian, I wonder if I could ask you to hop in and talk a little bit, yes, from the perspective of EFA Group and from that sector and that industry, how you see partnerships and impacting innovation. But of course, you also lead the Hellenic Entrepreneurs Association. So maybe taking a little bit of what you've heard from Katerina, what are you seeing emerging? What are some of the success? What are entrepreneurs need to partner and to really grow and deploy and for the next generation of unicorns?
Yes. First of all, thank you for inviting me today. Indeed, I would agree with the rest of the panelists, particularly Mr. Smirlis, about the fact that we don't need to worry about the environment because the brand name is there. It makes it easy. Before, I will tell you, 15 or 20 years ago, as a high-tech company, we faced really big problems, and even 5 or 7 years, because we were coming from Greece, and nobody would believe that there could be such high-tech companies in Greece. But now that this environment is okay, let me, if I may, because at the end of the day, the panel here talks about competitiveness and so on.
Please.
For us in business, trust is built on success. If you're not successful, you cannot build trust with other partners, you cannot build trust within the organization. So let me digress just shortly. You went from the city to the nation. I will go back to the company and then come back to this very briefly. it's very important when we talk about clusters, before we talk about across nation, across businesses, across sectors, to first have your cluster proper in your own company. Okay, very important. Because what is important here, you have to go back to the individual, the fundamental block of the company, of the cluster, and so on, is you have to foster a relationship where the people understand their role to connect the dots internally and not just be a dot. This is very important. Specific example, at Theon Sensors, which is the leading night vision company in the world right now, we have the R&D people are also being told to be business development people. The business development people are being told you don't go out to develop business, but you also go out to check R&D and help your colleagues on R&D. We even had a technical, I'm just giving an example, we even have established a technical business development team that connects production, R&D, and BD. So it's very important that you create those clusters within the company, okay? And here, digital, of course, transformation helps a lot. What is a potential an obstacle? Because I want to be very specific. Okay, the size must be kept to a minimum so there is interaction, but also allow me to disagree with the fact about productivity with remote working and everything. I think remote working, because it runs against what I just said before, a little bit of remote working is good, one day perhaps, it refreshes people, let them think, but more than 1 or 2 days is detrimental to creating clusters in the company. Now, let's move out of the company, we go to the other level, the business to business, across sectors. There, I've realized that, and I'm talking now as a Greek Entrepreneurs Association, we realize that it's really very beautiful, allow me to say the word, when business people get together and there's a B2B exchange of experience, not just knowledge, experience. Mm-hmm. It's very, very important across sector. Let me give specific examples. What is a business person experience from adopting digitization to share it with others? You know, not just theoretical, but specific. What was the experience from a specific country that you tried to export? Or let's say, how did one face the rising shipping costs that we all face? These are the things, so business to business is very important, the sharing of knowledge across sectors. At Greek Entrepreneurs Association, we foster this, we try this. Again, it brings back to what I said in the beginning, trust is being built on success. We brought people who were successful, even outside our organization, and share with our members how did they become successful, especially in the area of Middle East, which is the extrovert, using extroversion. So then let me talk across nation, because that's important, and I will speak more about my sector, because I'm not an expert on other sectors, the aerospace and defense. There, first of all, we have to ensure with this deglobalization that happened and is happening, that we are creating clusters among nations or among sectors from different nations that have same ethical values. We cannot, it has been proven the last year, we cannot build anything else differently. Yeah. The rest is temporary. If you don't have ethical values, I'm not trying to be being the ethic expert here, but I mean values like democracy between nations, there's no point, really. I mean, it's just a temporary exchange that we need. I take this, I give you this. That's all. So as far as that's, having said that, within European Union, on, for instance, aerospace, which is a very, very emerging sector, even from smaller countries like Belgium. Belgium is the size of Greece, Holland, very successful. Now there has to be collaboration, because it's nice to have smaller size companies, innovative, right? Because they are, most of the source of innovation comes from smaller companies. But if you are within a small country, you have to tie it up with other clusters. And this is something that's been going on right now between aerospace clusters in Holland, in Belgium, hopefully in Greece as well. And there, what is the government that can do? The European Union. The European Union is trying to bring procurements together.
Yes.
This is an incentive to make clusters. You force people to make clusters because it is joint procurements. It's not about Belgium, Holland, or Greece, and so on. So these are the things. And the last thing I want to say, if I may, which is common thread on being or not being competitive, because at the end of the day, this is also your organization here. I will say in Greece, we have one last big obstacle that we have to face to be really competitive is the non-salary cost. This is a big problem for us because we're talking about one generation paying more, so less net money in their pockets to service the older generation because we have a bigger, older population, right? But this cannot continue like that. The government has to find ways to cut these costs. We have suggested a couple of things like digitization certificates. Somebody who would invest would have a less salary cost. But this is something that we have to face. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. You've raised a lot of issues I want to come back to maybe in stages. I'm going to maybe turn to Peter and Dimitris on one of the first points you made, Christian, around people. Ultimately, it's people who matter. Peter, obviously, you lead a path-breaking lab. You're a professor. You're a founder of a company. You're working in teams. How are you inspiring or working with teams and individuals to create those partnerships? Are those partnerships necessary? Is your work enabled by individuals alone? How do you see that? And then I'd like to hear from Dimitris in particular around, in a similar vein, what are you all doing at Texas A&M University to build a talent pool who can really engage in deep tech ventures to create sustainable innovation ecosystems? And then I'm going to come back to everyone to talk about one of the latter points that Christian made around the business environment, the regulatory environment, the things that governments at different levels can do to enable partnerships and enable competitiveness. But Peter, please.
Thank you, Chad. This is an interesting document. So yesterday at the Academy, Chad Holliday launched this document, and the first three principles in here, and he emphasized the first one is private-public partnership. The second one, of course, is about innovation, engaging stakeholders, and the third one is talent. And those three really are the key things. So you're asking really about this question of where talent emerges. Now, my research and the company I set up, a company called Cohesion, we work in quantum technologies. And that's been a really interesting example about the need to build this talent in the ecosystem. And what's happened in the UK is with leadership from Sir Peter Knight, who's really led this and been one of the global leaders in quantum technologies, and the need for this, he's managed to bring together that happy nexus, or the nexus of there's a defense and security need for these technologies, so government support, which is the public part. Mm-hmm. He's managed to bring that together with the funding bodies and the universities, and also small companies. And so last Friday we had this big event. It's up to about 800 people now, the Quantum Tech Showcase. And what's been very important there is you go around, and you know I've been involved. My first grant in this area was in 2005 from NSF, in fact, the US. But it's that sort of talent there in these spin-out companies. So this is kind of key, but you can't do it in isolation. So it does take that government leadership to create the environment, to put the funds in. You know, I had products being shown there which we explored globally. They were enabled by public investment. So there's something really key there. But there's also something deeply personal about it. I mean, the UK creates all these initiatives at the level of government and committees and so on. And in reality, you've got to get in the room with people. Mm-hmm. And you've got to get in the room with people globally if you want to take that forward. But no, it really comes down to, and we're seeing this within the UK sector. And I'm talking kind of deep tech here, but you need the deep tech people, you need the finance people, you need the policy people, you need the people who can influence government. And if you can bring it together, which is what I think we're doing in quantum tech, then you can achieve some amazing results.
Dimitris, jump in there because, like I said, I've had the honor and the privilege of seeing a lot of deep tech development happening in College Station in Texas at your university. what's your reaction to what Peter said about the need for people to really be together, building on even what Christian said about, ultimately, remote work may work for a little bit, but you've got to get people connected. Yeah. And this is a theme that's emerged over the past 2 days around place-based innovation, so we're trying to tie some threads here.
Yeah, I agree. It is critical to bring people together, especially for major projects. You have to have a great idea. You have to be visionary and establish some targets that may not be feasible, but also you know that with innovation, one day that will become reality. And then, especially for students, bring people together and bring them together early on. We have many programs at Texas A&M, even with freshman engineering students. We bring them into our projects as student workers. And I have many examples. We have 27 centers that do innovation and incorporate student activities early on. Sarup is here, Magda, and they're all engaging students. We have the National Science Foundation has major programs along those lines, the I-Core program, and we have a major hub in the South. This is what drives innovation and bringing students together with mentors, with innovators. It is so important to do this and also take students to field trips, take them abroad, exchange programs. We're designing, for example, in the US, the next generation quiet supersonic vehicle. Concorde was the last one. We know what happened to it. For various reasons, it was not technology, but other reasons that it was discontinued. Now you have to overcome regulations about the sound barrier. We are working on developing a quiet one with Lockheed Martin, with NASA. Students is a critical part, and we're engaging them. We take them to field trips, and they are providing creative solutions for this technology innovation that is needed to be developed. And I want to mention also, and it is a call for action, I would recommend this highly to other countries. The National Science Foundation has just established a new program. I know that NSF is well connected with the Council of Competitiveness. There is a new Technology Innovation Partnerships Directorate at the National Science Foundation, and they just established a program called Innovation Engines. And there are small engines, there are big engines, but it was amazing. You need a catalyst of capital, and then the partnerships are happening. In Texas, we submitted 65 proposals for engines, just in the state of Texas, few hundred across the nation, and they're addressing different problems, working with the localities, like with mayors of cities that are forward-looking, and we have ideas from biotechnology, working with the medical center in Houston, supply chains with Brownsville in the south of Texas. We're working on coastal resiliency, major issue in the Gulf of Mexico with the weather changes. And this has developed an activity that we haven't seen before, and it is $1 million per small engine. And I have seen activities that are going to have a huge impact.
Well, I have to just jump in for a second there, Dimitris. My CEO, Deborah Wynn-Smith, and I were just on a call with the new assistant director for TIP, Erwin Giancandani, and he shared with us, you mentioned 60 or so proposals from Texas. There are nearly 700 proposals across the entire United States that are going into the National Science Foundation, competing for these innovation engines. And you're right, it has the potential, if appropriated by U.S. Congress, to be a transformative moment, a next generation moment for the U.S. innovation system. And I think the important thing there, it is explicitly focused on partnership. And one of the things that Erwin challenged Deborah, myself, and others on our team to think about, you hinted at it, these engines can't just be about, it's just the university researchers and big business. We need to have the venture community, the angel community, the mayors, the city councils. In the United States, Deborah had this incredible idea of thinking about how do we engage our Native American communities more aggressively at the very beginning of the foundation of these catalytic investments so that ultimately they are sustainable. Government money doesn't last forever. So how do we make sure communities have the buy-in that the mayor mentioned at the very beginning of our talk? And so I'd like to come back to that beginning of our conversation around communities, but I'd like to really tease on this idea that Christian brought out. How do you create these environments, whether it's in a company or in a community, that are innovation enabling? Is it a regulatory issue, standards? Is it about other sort of trust building exercises? Mayor, if you'd like to jump in, but I'd love to hear from Jonas, Christian, if you want to jump in again, Katerina, Peter, everyone. But Mayor, I could turn to you.
First of all, I'd like to say that I totally agree with Dimitris. We are two Dimitris.
That's why I
so you're right.
I didn't want to.
Well, there is something that I always have on my mind, that if you go fast somewhere, you can go on your own, but if you want to further, take people with you. And if entrepreneurship and competitiveness wants to go further, has to take the community with him, with us, to go together. And which could be the next big innovation? I believe that the environment and how resilient is all the approaches of entrepreneurship could be the next innovation issue for all of us. Because I really believe that sometimes a community feels that someone wants to leave them behind. We need a more inclusive community, and we have to go all together somewhere to the same target, to have the same vision. That's why the European Union has now announced a new, not only initiative, but mission, the 100 climate neutral cities, which means that we have to go together to the next era, where the environment could be the same denominator for all our actions. About energy, how to decrease the consumption, how to produce clean energy, how to store energy, about sustainable mobility and how to use less cars, walk more, cycle more, about the waste treatment and management, a huge problem for us in Greece. And the fourth pylon, which is, I believe, the most difficult, is how to change our mentality, how to change our minds. So, yes, this could be the innovation for the next greener day. How to persuade all of us to think and act greener.
Well, I think that last point particularly resonates, the changing mental maps, that we have to really think differently about how do we leverage all of our assets. And I think one of the minister earlier today talked about the Chinese character for challenge and opportunity being the same. That's a different mental map than a lot of people have, and so we have to really think differently. Peter, do you want to hop in, and then Katerina, I see.
Yes. I mean, I'm speaking from a university perspective, but it's coming in your point about utilising assets. You see, if we've done a recent survey at Southampton about the economic impact, and it turns out London Economics assessed about 4 billion a year of economic impact from the university. But it does reach right down into the community. So if you fly into the airport, take the bus, it's a Unilink bus. Wherever you go around the city, Unilink, the university, runs that system. But the other thing about creating this community is there's something about the assets that the universities and other public bodies have. And one of the things that the UK does really well, and I think the US doesn't, as I understand it, do so well, is opening up the university's resource to companies. So we've got about 1,000 people in the Southampton area working in the area of photonics in companies. But if you look at the gestation of most of these companies, they came through the university. So my company, Covision, we process in the university clean rooms. Luminicity is a company making ultra-fast optical fibers. They make use of the university clean rooms for that foundry. But if I talk to colleagues at, say, Stanford, the rules there prohibit doing that kind of work through those assets. They have to take them off-site. And a lot of things can be created. So there's something regulatory about being permeable as an institution. And it's about giving the institutions the power to do that. So the UK universities are very much given their own responsibility by government. There's some rules. We're assessed. There's some scrutiny. But we do sort of what we want to do. But that's a really powerful, and that lets us do things like step in and run the local bus service, because that's something we have to do.
Well, that's interesting, that sort of permeability, that sort of osmosis between these different stakeholders. I can't speak to the U.S. university community, and I really shouldn't speak to our national lab community, but I will note, because the council has been involved, the U.S. Council, in some efforts with our national laboratory community to create greater engagement of industry with publicly funded infrastructure, high-performance computing, advanced modeling and simulation capabilities, and that has been a transformative moment in the U.S. innovation ecosystem over the past 10 to 15 years. But Katerina, did you want to jump in, and then
I'd love to jump in at that point. I'm thinking of sharing a very practical example to demonstrate how we all need to think and act differently, whether it's local government, universities, companies, etc. I know you're going to be in Ioannina in the next 2 days. And Ioannina, we all know they have a very good tech hub. So the example is, actually, I will refer to TechMon, a specific case, a very strong technology team developing software in Ioannina. They paired with Panos, who was an IMBA student from our university, Athens University of Economics and Business, and they participated together in an open innovation program that was running a few years back with Athens International Airport. The program was facilitated by the Innovation Center in our university, ASIN, that's an incubator, which was actually financed initially by the mayor of Athens, so the municipality of Athens, to create an incubator inside the university. 2 years afterwards, I open a small parenthesis, the program stopped. So the incubator could have stopped working. I happened to be involved back then, and we found a way to make it a self-sustainable activity inside the university. And how did this happen? By facilitating open innovation programs with the industry. So the incubator is now a 15-people team, self-sustained inside the Greek university, and running such programs. Now, the program with the Athens International Airport meant that the incumbent firm, the organization of the airport, was open enough to come close to the startup community, to the innovation, engage real key employees in identifying innovations. And that's how the team of TechMon from Ioannina, with the Athens International Airport, developed a real key product that was applicable to all airports globally, but also to other organizations. So then the Metro of London employed the same technology, and all that wouldn't have gone further if a fund wouldn't invest in that. And for Unifund to be able to invest in such a case, the government should have taken, as it did actually, the leadership to finance, to create new funds in the country, EcoFund initiative, etc. And I will stop by saying how important I think is to have a continuation in that effort. It's not a game of just one government, one mayor, etc. We need a long-term strategy behind that. And I think, especially in the innovation domain, we see that. We see EcoFund that was started with another government, that was followed up and continued with another government. And now the Minister Dimas, I think he has done an excellent job continuing the effort to support structures like ASIN inside universities, or collaboration between universities, the industry, etc. And I could talk for hours, but I think demonstrating how important it is to create this ecosystem.
Well, Christian, I wonder if I could maybe tap you into this conversation with wearing the hat of the Entrepreneurs Association. What are you hearing from Greek entrepreneurs as maybe at the moment their biggest pain point? You know, what do they really need to see or would hope that could be resolved, that could even further accelerate their growth? Or what are they seeing as happening that's really right for them and that's actually helping them to scale and deploy better? And what might we share with the audience here that, from your perspective?
Okay. First of all, let me try to wrap things up a little bit here with what Katerina also said. There's a timing always. The government did the right things. They put the right frame, the brand, etc., right? But it takes time for individuals to mature, to understand what's happening. It takes time for other Greek companies like the airport company, which indeed did what Katerina mentioned. We're also looking at those things in our domain. Trust is being built, aside from the right frame, which exists right now, on successes. The more other big Greek business people see successes with Katerina, with other smaller things, the more they will try to venture. Now, but you asked me earlier, to come back to your question, what are the impediments, okay? The impediment, as I told you before, is the non-salary cost. This is the last, one of the two last, actually, I should add one more, because does not allow us to attract people from abroad to come and work here, because the net, after you deduct all those charges, are horrible. Yeah, so there's not a lot. This is one problem. It's not a problem of this government. It has been built and accumulated over the years. The second thing is, again, going more on a macroeconomic scale for the Greek Entrepreneurs Association, is and you see then that's when how everything is connected. We're talking about trust. The government brought a new law about mergers and acquisitions, right? Very correct law to give the incentive for fragmented industries to connect. Great reform, but another reform, unless this is implemented, it won't have as good the result. What is this? The speed of justice. Because to build trust, me as a Greek, because we've been, as I said, it all comes together now. The maturity of individuals as they go to start trusting other people comes with also certain intervention. How can you go into with somebody else in partnership, right? With these incentives of mergers and acquisitions, if you don't know if something goes wrong, and many times it does, that you will have justice quickly. So we are in the right direction, yeah? Don't take me wrong. We are in the very right direction. It takes time for those a reform to be built on the other reform, individuals to mature internally, and also companies to start trusting each other.
Yeah, so there are cycles that you have to work through.
It's a good cycle that we're in, and it's going to grow more.
And I think to your point, in a good cycle, hopefully a virtuous,
accelerate. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe on that same thing, Jonas, if you don't mind, if I was really intrigued by your idea of sort of the aspiration of bringing the success of the external economic diplomacy back down throughout all levels of Greece. Are you beginning to see some success? What do you see as maybe a challenge there, or what do you even think is the real opportunity if you're able to accomplish that goal?
At first, I must say that it's for granted that we have good entrepreneurs and good human capital in Greece. Yeah. So that's why we invest on that. What are the results already? The results already are, I can give you just 3 numbers, so not to say a lot. 40 billion of exports 2021, a record ever on that. Already this year, 2022, we passed 40 billion just this month, which means that we have a new record of all times. FDI, foreign direct investment, last year, 2021, 5 billion euro, a record since 2002, 20 years record. Strategic investments. We had the previous 5 years, 1.3 billion in 4.5 years, 5 years in 2 sectors, tourism and real estate. In these 3 years, because we don't have the final number yet, we have more than 8 billion euro, but not only real estate and tourism, but also in tech, also in logistics, also in data, so also in new sectors that are creating in Greece. These numbers are showing that we have results. These numbers are showing that we are creating ecosystems. I must say about, also myself, about Mr. Dimas and Elevate Greece that created a registry for the startups in Greece. But not only that, also the spin-offs with the universities and the motives and the subsidies that were, the incentives and the subsidies that we are giving in order to create something new, in order to bring R&D. I just can tell you an example of TheraCell, a company that's coming from the United States of America that is investing in Corinthos about R&D for cancer, 76 millions, and the Greek state, through innovative licenses, gave 32 million cash grant to this company in order to invest in Greece. So we give money, cash grant, only to companies that are providing innovation and R&D or are really emblematic in strategic investments. To no one else. All the rest are taking tax releases, they are having fast-track procedures, but they're not taking cash grants. So we are focused on innovation. We are focused on how we will create competitiveness as a country in order to bring more here. And of course, what is really important is what I said before, how this will affect the Greek ecosystem. And a last example of how, with economic diplomacy, we are trying to help all this ecosystem is that last week we were in San Francisco with Mr. Dimas and some startups, about 12 startups, in order to go there and introduce ourselves, introduce that, you know, there is a Greek ecosystem. We know now how many we have, which sectors are the good for us, what we can send to Silicon Valley, because Silicon Valley, you know, is some years in front of us. And we never believe that we will create a Silicon Valley in Greece. But what we want to create is a good connection of Greece with Silicon Valley in order to give the opportunity to Unifund, to EFA Group, but to any youngster who wants to invest his ideas in Greece, to be connected there and start from here. And if he's going to be the new Elon Musk, okay, then he can go to Silicon Valley. But before that, not to try how he will find his way, but to give him all the tools that he needs in order to find his way.
Well, a lot to think about there. You know, we've heard a lot over the past 2 days about the incredible Greek diaspora, and I think it's incredible to think that's a huge asset. And how do you engage? And it's a two-way street now, and so I think you're making some incredible inroads. We only have about a minute or two, but I know we have a question from the audience from our colleague Kande Yokela. I'm not sure if Kande, sorry, the light is really bright. Oh, I see you, Kande. Thank you, Vanessa, for the microphone. Please, Kande.
No, we've had.
And if you don't mind introducing yourself for the panel.
I'm one of the fellows for GFC, but I was curious about the huge growth in exports you've had, over 40 billion. What is the composition of your exports? What's driving the growth? Which aspect, which product is driving the growth?
Please.
The main products that we export are agricultural products of Greece. It's a huge industry in Greece. But it's not only this. It's also what Theon is creating, is building in Greece. Mm-hmm. It's also pharmaceuticals. So there are 2 or 3 different important sectors that are making these 40 billions. And of course, we have also putting technology in agriculture. So we have tomatoes that are being created in Greece just in water. And also we have the opportunity anymore to export the knowledge of building, the knowledge of energy to the whole region. Because what Greece can be a hub, a regional hub, which means that you import all the good minds and the good ideas in the country, but you export the knowledge to the whole region. So that's the big target. And of course, about diaspora, if you allowed me to say just one word, diaspora, Greek diaspora is one of the biggest in the world and one of the most well-organized in the world. Yeah. So even in San Francisco, we announced the Greek hub, the Greek tech hub of Silicon Valley, where we have all the kind of Greeks, from professors of universities to founders of big startups to venture capitals. You have all of what you need, all the recipients that you need of a good recipe there, and they are going to be a part of our system there on how we'll connect the 2 sides of the world. So diaspora is behind us, and what we want to create with them is to give them the opportunity to be the real ambassadors of our country. We have the ambassadors around the world.
Well, I was also going to jump in and say, as we've experienced with one of our GFCC members in Australia, Melbourne is, I think, one of the largest recipients of Greek talent engagement. I know we're out of time, but I need to give the panelists each a lightning round. One last point, if you haven't made it, that you think is important for this community to know about what you're doing, partnerships, what's important about them, or just a final thought. But so, Dimitris, one.
I want to emphasize again, Chad, what you said. Partnership with the national labs is critical. And in Greece, there are some, Demokritos, Eketa, and others. So I would re-emphasize that because we have seen it in the US, in other European countries. And then I want to say global standards for testing and evaluation, you mentioned this, is also very important for collaboration across the globe.
Mr. Mayor.
The only last, let's say, word could be just to think differently. This is a real innovation nowadays, to work together, always in terms of greener policies, with social cohesion, and also inclusiveness of our communities.
Thank you, Peter.
I guess I would just encourage this observation that we can think a lot locally, but we need to think globally. The opportunities and the networks and the companies are really global these days.
We did some good steps, all of us together, but it's really important to be stable and to continue the good work, because 3 or 4 years is nothing. Everybody said it before, that it's important to know that for the next years, for the next decades, we continue to the same way, the way of development for everybody.
Yes, last one, since you mentioned about diaspora, also at Greek Entrepreneurs Association, we really emphasize, especially in the US, Germany, and France, but we started with the US. We need to use this diaspora to help Greek entrepreneurs land in the States, invest in the States. The money, the return, it's 10 times more than having some of them invest in Greece, which it would be nice. And we already have, as Mrs. Smirli said, a lot of top multinationals. We have reached almost the top, but now we need to go out and create clusters like that by investing in the States, investing in Germany, investing in France. Greeks can do that. Diaspora can really help us there.
That's a great point. Katerina, last word to you.
All of the above, and also would like to stress the importance of big companies, big organizations opening up, coming in closer to the innovation ecosystem and the new startup environment, both in the country but also internationally. And I think we need to look at the space with new eyes.
I want to thank my panel. Thanks to the audience. Thank you, Delphi Economic Forum, Compete Greece.